All right. So, you're here because you love to learn and you want to really get into the weeds on stuff.
Absolutely.
Without, ending up feeling like you're drowning in too much information.
Right.
And today, I think we're really going to unpack something special. Something that goes beyond your typical, scary story.
This is not just a ghost story or something like that. I mean, this is a firsthand account that raises some pretty profound questions about, what we even perceive as real, and the possibility that we might encounter something else out there.
Something feels for sure. And we're looking at a narrative called "I'll Never Go RV Camping in Sawtooth National Forest, Idaho Again."
Right.
And what really stands out about this one is it's not presented as fiction. This is one person's attempt to really document and process this experience they had that they found absolutely terrifying. And that's what we're going to do in this deep dive today. We're really going to dissect what happened, explore all the bizarre phenomena that they encountered, and think about what it all could possibly mean, all those lingering questions.
Yeah, and the backdrop for this whole crazy experience is a seemingly very normal thing.
Yeah.
It's just a reunion between 4 college friends.
Right.
And they're at that point in their lives where life has kind of pulled them in different directions. And so they decide to reconnect. And they're going to do it with an off-grid RV camping trip to the Sawtooth National Forest, near Redfish Lake in Idaho.
Totally. It's such a relatable setup.
Yeah.
Like the anticipation of getting back together with your friends, those people who really know you, share your history.
Absolutely.
You pile into the RV in Boise, and it's just those old stories and all the inside jokes. It's just that easy camaraderie that we can all relate to.
Right.
But that feeling of pleasant nostalgia, it doesn't last very long.
No, it doesn't. And the first hint that something is off comes during a stop in Stanley, this small town, before they reach their secluded campsite.
Yeah.
And they go into this general store, just like, need to grab a couple of things.
Sure.
And an elderly clerk there gives them a very specific and rather intense warning.
Yeah, this isn't just casual advice, the way the narrator describes it. Mm-mm. This old guy was really agitated.
Oh, yeah.
Really intense. And they just mention their plan to camp near Redfish Lake. And he, grabs the narrator's wrist.
Wow.
And, urges them stick to the designated campgrounds, and even says that the forest has a way of confusing those who wander too far.
Oh, that's creepy.
It's creepy, right?
Yeah, it's like a classic horror movie trope,
really.
The unexpected warning. And often, as in this case, it gets dismissed, Yeah. Rachel especially kind of laughs it off, says that he's just, one of those stereotypical small-town characters trying to scare the tourists.
Yeah.
But what I found really intriguing was that the narrator later remembers that Rachel was actually avoiding eye contact with the clerk. Almost like she was apprehensive.
Interesting.
Or even had a sense of foreknowledge about the warning. Why do you think that stood out?
It does stand out. It makes you think that maybe Rachel wasn't as dismissive as she is letting on.
Yeah.
It plants this seed of unease right from the start.
Right.
And that only grows when they get to their clearing.
Yeah.
It's this beautiful spot, just like Rachel's pictures had promised, overlooking the lake and those incredible mountain peaks.
Right.
But there's something that the pictures didn't really convey.
Yeah, the rock formation.
The rock formations, right.
The narrator describes these tall, jagged spires of weathered granite right there on the edge of their campsite. They're like teeth erupting from the ground.
Right.
Casting these long, distorted shadows. And you get this immediate sense of being watched by these silent, inanimate sentinels.
Yeah.
It really sets the stage. This atmosphere of foreboding.
So they set up camp and... the first day is pretty normal.
Yeah.
So you go for a hike, they swim on the lake, just typical camping stuff.
Right.
But even then, Rachel's behavior starts to seem a little off.
Yeah.
She's just laser focused on photographing those tooth-like rocks, spending hours getting every possible angle.
I wonder what's up with that.
What do you make of that?
Well, it's certainly noteworthy, right? I mean, maybe she was just really drawn to their... the dramatic geological formations, but the intensity of her focus. And then later on, how strange things get with the pictures. It suggests it might have been something more,
Yeah.
And when the narrator finally asks to see all these pictures that she's been taking, there's a moment of hesitation before Rachel shares them. And then the photos themselves are strange. The rocks seem to have this internal glow, which Rachel kind of explains away. She's like, oh, it's just natural light refracting through quartz. But the narrator distinctly remembers this unsettling feeling looking at these illuminated spires in the pictures.
Interesting.
So there's something off about them.
Yeah, so later that day, as the evening sets in, they're all gathered around the campfire, and things take another turn toward the unsettling.
Right.
Devin suggests telling ghost stories, which is something they used to do back in college.
Classic.
Yeah, and when it's Rachel's turn, she shares this Shoshone legend
Oh, okay.
of Pahayoko the Mirror.
Payoko the Mirror.
Yeah, had you ever heard of that before?
I hadn't heard that specific one, but the idea of these like mimicking entities
Right, yeah.
that shows up in folklore from lots of different cultures.
Of course, yeah.
But what's really creepy about the Payoko legend are the specifics.
Yeah.
So this entity, it can't actually enter our world directly,
Okay.
but it makes these imperfect copies of people and uses them as lures to draw other people deeper into the wilderness.
Oh, why?
And the legend gives these really chilling details about how you can identify these copies.
Like,
Well, they know things they shouldn't.
okay.
They have strange, jerky movements,
Oh.
and their reflections lag just a little bit behind their actions.
Oh, that's creepy.
It's like a story that's meant to tap into our deepest fears.
Right.
The fear of not knowing who's real.
And not knowing what's real. That's
Yeah,
that story really hangs in the air after she finishes telling it.
I bet.
It colors the whole rest of the evening with this like subtle sense of dread.
Right.
And that night, the narrator experiences something really disturbing.
Oh, no.
So like around 3 a.m., their phone screen lights up. And there's a message in the Notes app that just says, "Come outside, see what I found." And then just as quickly as it appeared, it's gone.
Wow. What would you do?
I don't know. I think I would be super freaked out.
Yeah. I mean, you're in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Self-deleting message.
Right.
Something's definitely wrong.
And it doesn't end there.
Oh, no.
So the narrator then hears footsteps outside the RV and sees a flashlight beam moving through the trees toward those rock formations.
Oh, geez.
And they go outside to investigate, mixture of fear and curiosity.
Yeah.
But the light just vanishes. And they're hit with this intense feeling of being watched by many unseen eyes.
Oh, that's scary.
It's terrifying. And they go back inside and everyone else is totally asleep.
Like nothing happened.
Exact.
So the next morning comes, but any sense of normalcy is totally gone.
Oh, yeah.
Things start to get really strange.
Yeah.
They wake up to this dense fog that's not normal for the area.
Right.
And all their electronic devices start malfunctioning in these really weird ways.
Yeah. It's not just dead batteries. It's like phones draining their charge and then suddenly showing a full battery again like a minute later.
Wow.
And Devin's tablet, where they had all their maps and photos,
Right.
had corrupted files with these bizarre elongated shadows that don't match anything that was in the original pictures.
Huh. That's strange. What do you think about all these like tech glitches happening in this place?
I guess you could try to explain it away as environmental factors, right? Like
Right.
fluctuating power or software glitches.
Yeah.
But given everything else that's going on, it seems way more ominous.
Yeah, it's like the very fabric of reality is starting to break down.
Right.
And it starts with their connection to the outside world, you know?
Uh-huh. Like their technology.
Their technology, exactly.
And then there are Rachel's audio recordings.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about that.
So Rachel had been recording the sounds of the forest, just ambient nature sounds.
Right.
But when they listen back, the recordings have all these whispered conversations in their own voices.
What?
Yeah. And they're talking about stuff that never even happened,
Like what?
including a whole detailed account of the narrator falling into a ravine during their hike the day before.
Jeez, that's freaky.
Right?
Like it's a fabricated memory
Yeah.
embedded in their own voices.
Uh-huh. So unsettling.
It really suggests some kind of intelligence is at work here. Something that's not just watching them, but actually messing with their perceptions.
And their memories.
And their memories. Yeah, it's really creepy.
So Devin, always the pragmatist tries to find a logical explanation.
Yeah.
He suggests maybe there's some kind of electromagnetic anomaly
Right.
caused by like the mineral composition of the rocks.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
But as things get stranger, his explanations start to feel less and less convincing.
I bet.
So they're trying to explore the surrounding forest, and they start noticing these inconsistencies in the landscape.
Like what?
Familiar paths loop back on themselves.
Yeah.
Landmarks disappear when they're not looking directly at them.
Oh, wow.
It's like the forest itself is playing tricks on them.
So creepy. And then there's that picture.
The picture of Sophia, right?
Yeah.
So Rachel takes this picture of Sophia,
Uh-huh.
and it shows her with two shadows.
What?
Yeah, one that's normal,
Yeah.
consistent with the light source.
Right.
But the other one is fainter, and it's cast in the wrong direction and kind of distorted.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah, The narrator tries to explain it away as a trick of the light or a double exposure.
Right.
But then they see something really weird themselves.
What's that?
Just for a split second, they see Sophia's movements become super fluid, almost like she's underwater. And then her smile takes a little too long to form.
Jeez, these aren't huge changes, but they're so unsettling.
I know, it makes you question what you're seeing.
Right, like you can't even trust your own senses.
And all this leads to even stranger stuff when they get back to their campsite on the third day.
Oh boy.
They wake up and things are subtly different.
Like what kind of different?
Chairs are slightly out of place.
Okay.
Personal items have moved a few inches. And then there's the really bizarre thing. A perfect circle of small, smooth stones has appeared around the RV.
What?
Yeah. And each stone is marked with a symbol that none of them recognize.
No way.
Sophia tries to be rational,
Right?
She suggests maybe it's a prank by another camper.
Uh-huh.
But they're so far out there, it seems impossible.
Yeah. And what about the symbols?
Well, Devin, being drawn to puzzles, examines them closely.
Okay.
And he says they look kind of like Shoshone pictographs, but they're not quite right.
Interesting.
Like an imitation made by someone who didn't understand the original.
I wonder what that could mean.
Yeah, it's definitely creepy, especially thinking back to that Payoko legend.
Oh, yeah, the whole idea of imperfect copies.
Well-
It's like something's trying to communicate, but it can't quite get it right.
Exactly. And on top of all that, Rachel's behavior is getting more disturbing.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Well, she's super secretive about her photography now.
Okay.
Disappearing for long stretches of time and making up excuses. And then there's this contradiction about where she slept.
What do you mean?
She tells the narrator that she slept in the RV
Okay.
because she was freaked out after the previous night.
Right.
But then she tells Devin she slept in her tent,
Oh, that's weird.
right? It just doesn't add up.
It makes you think something's really wrong with her.
Yeah, for sure. And then that thick fog comes back even denser than before.
Oh, no.
And Sophia says something terrifying.
What's that?
She thinks the rocks have moved closer to the RV.
Oh, God.
Devin, of course, tries to say it's just their imagination.
Yeah.
But then the fog thins for a moment, and they all see it.
What do they say?
The rocks have definitely moved.
No way.
They're in this loose semicircle now facing the RV.
Oh.
And even weirder, the surfaces of the rocks are like undulating.
Oh, that's just wrong.
I know, it's like something's moving underneath them.
So
So at that point, they know they have to get out of there,
absolutely.
but it's getting dark, and
Right.
the fog makes driving way too dangerous.
Yeah.
So they decide to stay in the RV one more night,
Yeah.
lock all the doors,
Oh,
and
jeez.
take turns, keeping watch.
I bet they don't get much sleep.
Not at all during the narrator's watch.
Yeah.
The fog starts glowing with that same weird light that was in Rachel's pictures.
Oh, no.
And then the whispers start.
The
Yeah, just outside the RV, you can't make out any words. But the speech patterns sound like their own conversations.
So creepy.
The narrator doesn't want to wake the others
Right.
because they think they might be imagining it.
Right.
But then one voice gets louder,
Oh, no.
and it's the narrator's own voice.
No way.
But it's saying things they never said.
Oh, what?
Talking about the others in this weird, detached way, calling them vessels and consciousnesses.
Oh, wow.
And it says in this cold, flat tone, the Rachel original has been completely subsumed.
Oh, my gosh.
Can you imagine hearing your own voice saying that?
it'd be terrifying.
Totally terrifying.
It's like confirmation that this thing knows them,
Yeah.
understands them.
So right after hearing that, the narrator checks on the others.
Okay.
Devin and Sophia seem asleep.
Uh-huh.
Although Sophia's breathing is like weirdly still. But Rachel's bunk is empty.
Oh, no.
And then they see her outside in the fog.
Oh, jeez.
Her back to the RV facing the rock.
This is not good.
And when she turns around, her face is wrong.
Wrong. How?
Her features are distorted. Her eyes are too big and bright.
Oh, gosh.
Her smile is stretched way too wide,
Wow.
showing something unsettling.
Oh, wow.
She raises a hand, and her fingers look unnaturally long and beckons the narrator towards her.
No way.
It's like at that moment, the tension just explodes.
right into pure horror.
Exactly.
It's the realization that the Rachel they knew is gone.
Yeah.
Replaced by something else.
And that's what wakes up Devin and Sophia.
Okay.
The narrator's totally freaked out, obviously.
yeah.
Tells them what they saw and heard.
Right.
And even though Devin's in shock, Rachel's empty bunk and the narrator's terror is enough to convince them.
Wow. So what do they do?
Well, Sophia knows they're in danger.
Right.
They have to get out of there.
Yeah.
But they still want to find Rachel if they can.
Of course.
So they grab flashlights and a knife
Oh, gosh.
and head out into the fog, calling for Rachel.
like a nightmare.
I know. And when they get to the rocks, it's even worse.
How so?
Well, the rocks have formed a complete circle now.
Oh, no.
And in the center, standing in a few inches of water.
Wait, there's water there now.
Yeah, even though they're nowhere near the lake.
That's so strange.
It's Rachel.
Oh, geez.
And as she turns to face them, it's clear she's changed.
Yeah.
It's Rachel, but not Rachel. Her movements are too fluid. Her features are subtly but definitely altered. Her eyes have this predatory shine to them.
Oh, gosh.
And when she speaks, it sounds like Rachel, but there's this creepy harmonic undertone to her voice.
Oh, that's so disturbing.
And then the thing that really confirms what they're dealing with,
Yeah.
this being this thing that calls itself Rachel, but more than Rachel now,
Right.
tells them about a private conversation that the narrator and Rachel had years ago.
A private conversation.
Yeah, something deeply personal that they'd promised never to tell Devin or Sophia.
Oh, wow. So this thing has access to Rachel's memories.
Yeah. Yeah, her most intimate thoughts and feelings. It's a total violation.
Absolutely. And as this thing is talking the water around, it starts to rise. And its fingers get longer and sharper.
Oh, God.
And behind it, the air between the rocks is distorted. And you can see glimpses of this weird alien landscape.
Oh, wow.
Like another reality is bleeding through.
Sophia knows they have to leave right then.
Yeah.
But when they turn to run, they're surrounded.
Surrounded by what?
Standing between them and the RV are copies of themselves.
Copies.
Yeah, Devin, Sophia, and the narrator.
Oh, my God.
And the Rachel thing says that the invitation has been accepted,
No.
that the circle is complete, and they've been observed long enough for the process to begin.
The process.
Yeah, it says there's a place for each of them as a perfect reflection.
I don't even want to think about what that means.
It's terrifying, right?
Yeah, what happens next?
So they just run.
Yeah.
Devin takes off. Sophia grabs the narrator.
Okay.
They make it back to the RV,
Okay, good.
but their copies are right behind them.
Okay.
They're moving so fast and in these unnatural ways, like spiders scuttling across the ground, climbing trees with these disjointed movements. And the Rachel thing is the worst.
Right.
It's just this shifting, flowing form.
Oh, wow.
And then Devin does something incredible.
What?
He sees the Rachel thing starting to phase through the RV's side mirror.
Oh, no.
So he swerves the RV and crashes it into a tree.
What?
Yeah, he takes the impact on the passenger side where the entity was.
Oh, my gosh.
The crash is really bad. Devin's trapped and badly hurt.
Oh, no.
His last words are for them to run and tell people what happened.
Oh, wow.
So they have to leave him there.
Oh, geez.
As their copies close in on the wrecked RV,
Yeah.
they run into the fog and eventually find a ranger station.
Okay.
They're obviously completely traumatized.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
The authorities investigate, of course, and they find the wrecked RV.
Uh-huh.
But there's no sign of Devin.
Or the copies.
The copies are Rachel's presumed dead. And the official explanation, even though there's no evidence, is mass hallucination.
Oh, come on. Caused by carbon monoxide poisoning and drug use.
They just dismiss the whole thing.
So they don't believe them.
No, and then it gets worse.
It gets worse.
Yeah, 2 months later, Sophia disappears from her apartment.
What?
There's no sign of forced entry or anything. But her bathroom mirror is shattered,
Oh, geez.
and there's a puddle of some weird liquid on the floor that evaporates.
Just vanishes.
Yeah, like the reflections themselves are being targeted.
Oh, that's a scary thought.
The narrator is now living in fear.
Right.
They've gotten rid of all the mirrors in their house,
Uh-huh.
but they still see glimpses of those distorted faces.
Oh, gosh.
They're convinced they're being watched.
Yeah, I bet.
And they're terrified of making a mistake and being taken.
Right.
The account ends with this chilling warning to anyone who goes near that place.
A warning.
Yeah, stay away from the north shore of Redfish Lake.
Okay.
Avoid those tooth-like rocks. Watch your friends for any weird behavior,
Like what?
memory problems, issues with their reflections,
Right.
any obsession with mirrors.
Yeah.
If anything seems off, leave right away.
Don't even try to figure it out.
No, and never ever answer if you hear your name called in the woods at night.
Oh, wow.
And the last image is the narrator seeing their own double outside their window.
Oh, my God.
It's a truly unsettling ending.
It is. It really makes you think.
Yeah, what gets me is how they take something familiar, like friends and memories and nature,
Yeah.
and twist it into something horrifying.
Absolutely.
It makes you question everything.
It really does.
So what are the boundaries of our perception?
Right. Like what's really real.
What could be out there that we just don't understand?
Exactly.
And how would we know if our reality was being changed?
That's a scary thought.
Think about a world where perfect imitations could be walking among us
Wow.
and how fragile our sense of self really is.
This has given me a lot to think about.
You too.
Welcome back, everyone. Today we're taking a deep dive into some seriously strange territory. I mean, this source material we received, it's unsettling, to say the least. Buckle up.
It is quite remarkable, the information you've sent us. An account titled, "Never Go RV Trip in Bruno Dunes, Idaho Again. Never Make My Deadly Mistake."
Wow.
The author, a former high school physics teacher, mind you, also an author of stargazing guides, now a patient at, well, the Boise Neuropsychiatric Institute.
Yeah, so we're not dealing with just anyone's fleeting thoughts here. This is someone who knows the night sky, who's dedicated his life to understanding it. And what he claims to have encountered out there in the Idaho desert, it's deeply disturbing, to say the least.
It is. And the detail, the internal consistency of his narrative, that's what makes it so compelling, so unnerving.
Right, right. So our mission today isn't to diagnose or anything like that. We're going to dig into the specifics, the claims, the timeline, and see what, if anything, we can glean from this account. This feels like more than just a creepy campfire story, you know? It might offer a glimpse into something we don't yet understand, something potentially huge.
Absolutely. Let's start with the setup. This astronomer, he was on a quest to find truly dark skies, the kind you don't get near cities or even established observatories.
Right. He was working on his third book, all about prime dark sky locations. He already had 2 successful books out there. He was deeply committed to this.
Exactly. And Bruno Dunes in Idaho, that was his target.
But not just the state park itself, right? I mean, that already has an observatory.
No, he was drawn to these whispers, you could say, within the astronomy community. Whispers about even darker skies in those restricted zones outside the park's boundaries. He even had a custom RV, practically a mobile observatory, all decked out with high-tech telescopes and imaging equipment.
So serious dedication here, not just a casual stargazer.
Oh, absolutely not. He used satellite imagery, pinpointed a specific bowl-shaped area formed by the dunes, figuring it would block any stray light. And he navigated some pretty rough, unmarked paths to get there. This guy was driven.
For that perfect observation spot, yeah. And he described this intense darkness when he arrived, like almost disorienting until his eyes adjusted. And then, he said, the stars just exploded into view. The Milky Way, he described it with details you usually only see in long exposure photos.
A true astronomer's dream, right?
At least it seems that way at first.
Right. So he starts his routine, calibrating his equipment, aiming at familiar constellations, making note of the excellent atmospheric conditions. But then, he spots it. An area between Cygnus and Lyra, that's the Harp and the Swan constellations, just seemed empty.
Empty. Like no stars where there should be stars.
Exactly. A void in the sky. In his initial reaction, well, it was pure scientific curiosity. He thought maybe it's an uncatalogued dark nebula, a dense cloud of dust blocking the starlight. So he pointed his telescope right at it, expecting to see maybe some structure, some hint of what it could be.
Okay, so let's talk about this void. What happened when he zoomed in?
Things got weird. As the telescope locked onto those coordinates, the tracking motors went haywire, making these jerky adjustments, almost like it was trying to follow something that was moving. And through the eyepiece, the void was even more pronounced. This absolute blackness that seemed to like swallow the light around it.
Okay, now that's creepy. Did he get any readings?
He did. He hooked up his spectrograph, that device that analyzes light, breaks it down into its components, tells you what something is made of. He was expecting, nothing, or maybe the absorption lines you'd see from dust. But instead, periodic pulses of radiation across multiple wavelengths, some even beyond what his equipment should have been able to detect.
Whoa, and these pulses weren't random, were they?
Not at all. They were incredibly regular, 17.3-second intervals, precise as clockwork, like something intentional.
Okay, so this is way beyond a simple dust cloud now. What did he do?
Well, he kept observing, documenting everything meticulously, taking images, using different filters. And then, around 3 a.m., during a long exposure shot, something truly bizarre. Remember, long exposures capture faint details over time. The stars usually show up as slight arcs due to the Earth's rotation. But in this photo, the stars near the void, they're spiraling inwards, towards it, as if being pulled in.
That's not how stars move.
Exactly. It defies our understanding of astrophysics. And some stars, they just vanished mid-exposure. Their trails ended abruptly, like they were snuffed out.
That's just wrong. And his scientific training, his whole life's work, it must have been screaming at him that this was impossible.
You would think. He tried, to rationalize it. Equipment malfunction, atmospheric distortion, something, anything. But he knew deep down this was something else entirely.
Did it stop there with just the visual weirdness?
Unfortunately, no. He then describes this low rumbling, like coming from one of the nearby dunes. He shines his flashlight on it, and the light, it's weak, like it's being absorbed by the sand itself. And then the rumbling stops, and it's replaced by whispers all around him, coming from everywhere, but not in any language he recognizes. And the truly disturbing part, he felt like they were responding to his thoughts, like the tones would shift when he mentally questioned them.
Oh, that is chilling. That would send shivers down my spine to think that something could be listening in on your thoughts, reacting to them.
Exactly. And as if that wasn't enough, later when he's reviewing his digital photos, something else. Tiny pinpricks of light inside the void this time, arranged in these geometric patterns, slowly rotating. And in the last image of the sequence, they come together. They form the shape of a human eye, pupil dilated, staring right back at the camera lens.
Okay, that's some seriously creepy imagery. No wonder he couldn't sleep after that.
He didn't. And at that point, he shifted gears. From scientific observation to researching local folklore. Specifically, the stories of the Shoshone-Paiute tribes who've lived in that region for centuries.
And what did he find?
Well, their traditions, they talk about the dunes as a place where the veil between our world and the sky is thin. They have legends of star people, beings who fell to earth, and warnings passed down through generations about a hungry darkness that resides above the dunes. Specific rituals to avoid attracting its attention.
Oh, wow.
They even tell stories about people driven mad by looking too closely at the night sky in that area.
So it's not like this was a brand new phenomenon, something never encountered before. It has roots, deep roots, in the history and the understanding of that land.
Yes. And there's this concept in their lore called Piep Pa Tetempi, which translates to empty sky water. It's described as a well, but not a physical one. A well that allows entities to enter our world, and they do it through the minds of observers, those who look too deeply into the sky.
That is just so eerie. Like the act of observation itself becomes a conduit, a connection.
Right. And the next morning, he wakes up, and there are these intricate patterns etched in the sand around his RV, like writing, but in some unknown script. He even describes them as subtly shifting when he looked away, like a flicker of movement in his peripheral vision.
Okay, so not only is he being watched, but it's messing with him directly now. What were the symbols like?
Well, that's the most disturbing part. The innermost symbols, they similar to his own astronomical notations, like someone or something was trying to copy his scientific language, mimicking him, but not quite understanding it.
Oh, that is creepy. Like a child trying to imitate an adult's handwriting, but in this case, the child is something else entirely. Did he consider leaving at that point?
Briefly, yes. But that curiosity, that scientific drive to understand, it kept him rooted there. He spent the morning trying to make sense of the data, running it through his analysis software, but the spectrographic readings, they were just gibberish. Unclassifiable.
Oh, yeah.
His software spit out error messages.
And those long exposure photos, anything new there?
Same story. Stars spiraling into the void, their light trails cut short. And that eye-like formation, it was even more detailed, more unnerving in those later images.
Like it was, solidifying, becoming more real.
That's a good way to put it. As the second night approached, things got even stranger. The sand felt different underfoot almost, fluid in places. The air grew heavy still. The usual desert wind had completely vanished, creating this unnatural quiet. And those sand symbols, they'd rearranged themselves into a spiral pattern, the apex pointing right at where his telescope had been.
Okay, so it's getting more active, more deliberate. The void. Was it still in the same spot?
That's the really unsettling part. It had moved. No longer between Cygnus and Lyra. It was now directly in the path of his planned sky survey for that night. As if it knew, as if it was, waiting.
It's like a game of cat and mouse, but the mouse is well, we don't even know what it is.
And it had grown. The void, significantly larger, its edges sharper, more defined. It was presenting itself.
Oh, that's not good. And what about him? How was he holding up at this point?
This is where his account takes a truly disturbing internal turn. He describes this overwhelming lethargy, a sudden draining of energy. The natural sounds of the desert, they faded away, replaced by this profound silence. And the void, he could sense it, not just see it, but sense it pulsing with some kind of unseen energy.
Oh, man. And the whispers, did they come back?
They did, but this time, not from outside, from inside his mind. Forming words, English words this time, words like observer, calculation, suitable, and vessel.
Oh, that's just, no thank you.
He then recounts this episode, almost like an out-of-body experience. He's at his laptop, his hands moving involuntarily, typing out these complex equations related to celestial mechanics, stuff way beyond what he'd normally work with. And mixed in with those equations, strange symbols he didn't recognize.
So, like, his mind was being used, hijacked almost.
Yeah.
What happened next?
He'd snap out of these episodes and find notebooks filled with his handwriting. But the content, bizarre. Calculations, diagrams, geometric figures, things that seemed impossible. They all describe these transit points, these theoretical points of connection between dimensions or realities. Like something was using his mind to explore concepts he couldn't consciously grasp.
And I'm guessing those notebooks didn't offer any comfort, did they?
No. They laid out this chilling theory that the void wasn't just some passive anomaly, but a weakening in the fabric of reality, a dimensional boundary, and that this weakening was being accelerated, widened by the act of observation, especially by someone who understood the cosmos, who could comprehend it.
So his knowledge, his expertise, the very thing that drew him to Bruneau Dunes, it became a weapon, a tool for whatever this thing was.
Exactly. He was not just observing, he was enabling. The next morning, the situation had escalated dramatically. The sand patterns now covered the entire area, perfectly mirroring the diagrams he'd found in his notebooks. His equipment was messed with, rearranged. The telescope pointed at the ground, the spectrograph taken apart and modified with parts he didn't recognize.
This is so messed up. And what about those emails he mentioned?
Oh, that's unsettling. He found drafts on his computer addressed to other astronomers, inviting them to his location to witness this unprecedented celestial event. And he felt this intense urge to send them, a compulsion he could barely resist. He describes deleting them as causing him physical pain.
Like he was being puppeted, controlled.
It's a terrifying thought. And the landscape around him, it was transforming. The dunes shifting into geometric patterns, the sand flowing like liquid in some areas. Even the daylight seemed wrong, the shadows disturbing.
Okay, this is getting seriously Lovecraftian now.
Yes. And his automated camera, the one he had set up to take continuous images of the sky, it captured a terrifying sequence. The void growing, stars literally disappearing, being consumed by it. And then the final image. A simplified model of our solar system appearing within the void. And Earth. Earth was pulsing, glowing brightly.
Yeah, target.
It's hard not to interpret it that way. He decided he had to get out of there to escape. But even that simple act, it was a struggle. His body felt heavy, his mind filled with these alien calculations. He describes himself compulsively reassembling the disassembled equipment instead of packing it.
Like his body was working against him on autopilot?
Exactly. And the whispers in his head, they became clearer, more insistent. Phrases like perfect alignment approaching, consciousness bridge established, and this chilling one, vessel preparation advanced. He knew with absolute certainty that vessel referred to him.
Oh, man. So what happened? Did he make it out?
Barely. He described starting the RV, driving away, and the sand around it churning violently, trying to pull him back. He had to floor it, push the vehicle to its limits to break free.
That's some nightmare fuel right there. What happened after he escaped?
The next few days are fragmented in his memory. Just flashes of driving, distorted landscapes, almost dreamlike. But one incident stands out. He stops at a gas station, sees his reflection in a window, and for a split second, his eyes are solid black.
Whoa.
He also describes these gaps in his consciousness, periods of missing time, and during one lucid moment, he records a video of himself. Later, watching it back, his speech is changing. His vocabulary becomes alien, stilted. At one point, he even speaks in a language he doesn't recognize, this guttural, non-human language.
That's beyond disturbing. Did they analyze the language?
They try to, but the hospital's copy of the video, the section with the non-human speech is corrupted, like it was deliberately erased.
Oh, come on.
He realized he was losing control, becoming something else. But he made the difficult decision to commit himself to the Psychiatric Institute. He saw it as a last resort, a way to protect himself, maybe get some help, to document what was happening.
Makes sense in a desperate kind of way. Did the doctors believe him?
Sadly, no. They took his physical evidence, the photos, the data, and dismissed it. They saw his detailed notebooks, the ones with all the equations and diagrams, as, well, the product of a delusional mind. Although several pages, the ones containing the most disturbing information, are mysteriously missing from those notebooks.
Oh, great. So now the evidence is vanishing too.
He's in the Institute now. He says the foreign presence has receded somewhat, but not completely. He feels it, lurking. And he thinks it's changed tactics. It doesn't need him in the same way anymore.
Why not? What's changed?
Well, he reports seeing a void in the sky above Boise growing larger every day. And disturbingly, some of the orderlies at the Institute, they've reported seeing a dark spot in the sky too. Of course, they dismiss it as, atmospheric conditions or whatever.
Ignorance is bliss, right? Until it's not.
And his warning is clear. Avoid Bruneau Dunes, especially those remote areas. He specifically cautions anyone who knows the night sky, astronomers, stargazers, to be incredibly careful. He says, don't focus on any one area of the sky for too long. Resist any urges to look at specific coordinates. And if you see a void, something that feels wrong, look away. Immediately.
That's some serious advice. But how do you just look away from something like that? The curiosity would be overwhelming, I think.
He emphasizes the intelligence of this entity, its ability to learn, to adapt. And he says it exploits our curiosity, our desire to understand. It used his knowledge against him. And that connection he made, he believes it's still there. He's even found equations and diagrams written on his room's walls, things he didn't write. They seem to predict the void's growth and this terrifying thing, a critical observational mass.
Critical observational mass. What does that even mean?
He believes it's the point where enough people have seen it or even just know about it that it becomes permanently anchored to our reality.
Okay, this is a lot to process. A former physics teacher, a man of science, reduced to a patient in a psychiatric institute, warning us about a void in the sky that eats stars and can invade minds. It's both fascinating and terrifying.
It is. And while, yes, he's been diagnosed with a mental health condition, the sheer level of detail, the consistency of his account, it forces us to ask, what if there's more to this? What if there are things out there, phenomena that our science can't even begin to grasp, that can interact with our minds in ways we don't understand?
And the idea that observation itself could be a catalyst, that's both profound and unsettling. It makes you wonder about the nature of reality, about the power of focused attention. And that critical observational mass, does just talking about this, thinking about it, contribute to it? Are we playing right into its hands, so to speak?
It's a chilling thought to end on, but I think it's a necessary one. What do you think? I think this deep dive has opened a door to some very unsettling possibilities. Possibilities that we may not be fully equipped to understand. We need to be cautious, to be aware, and perhaps to reconsider the boundaries of what we believe to be real.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the unknown, and as always, stay curious but stay vigilant. Imagine setting out to photograph, like this breathtaking really remote natural wonder. And then, instead of getting these amazing shots, you end up in this fight, like a terrifying fight for your sanity and, well, maybe even your life.
Yeah, sounds pretty intense.
It is. And that's what we're looking at today, this really unsettling experience of this travel photographer, Alexander Cooper.
Right, Alexander Cooper.
Who ventured into Hell's Canyon for his blog series. It was called Hidden America.
Okay, so Alexander Cooper, this wasn't some amateur photographer. He was like a really respected voice in outdoor photography.
Right.
And he had a really good eye for detail and a knack for storytelling, and he had built up this huge following. Over 1 million people.
Wow.
Trusted him, trusted his vision, trusted his take on the world, and his Hidden America series. It was really clever. Its premise, because he was spotlighting all of these incredible natural locations in America. They kind of fly under the radar,
Yeah.
They're like the unsung heroes of the American landscape, the places that most people don't really think about,
And Hell's Canyon, that was like his ultimate find, wasn't it? Think about it. It's the deepest river gorge in North America.
Yeah.
Deeper than the Grand Canyon even, in some parts.
I know, right.
But way less visited.
Way less.
So you can see why he would consider it like the perfect subject for his blog series, exploring these hidden gems.
Totally. The scale of the place is it's mind-blowing, and it's remote.
Yeah.
And the feeling of like untamed wilderness you get there.
Yeah.
It aligned perfectly with what he was trying to capture, in his photography.
Absolutely. And the fact that he chose to go to the Western Rim
Right.
via this like pretty demanding road, the Seven Devils Road.
Yeah, Seven Devils Road. Not for the faint of heart.
It kind of shows that he was really looking for that, raw, unfiltered view.
Exactly.
Like a vista that is basically untouched.
Yeah. By like significant human presence.
Yeah.
He wanted that pure raw nature.
Okay, so for this deep dive, we're using Alexander Cooper's own account of what happened to him. as our primary source.
Right.
And it's firsthand, and I'll be honest, it's pretty disturbing.
It is, yeah. His narrative of what happened in Hell's Canyon.
So our goal here isn't to like just recount some spooky story, you know?
No.
We want to really examine, like meticulously go through what happened, the sequence of events that he describes, and trying to figure out like where are there rational explanations?
Right.
And where does it become truly unsettling, you know?
Where do we cross over into the unexplainable, right?
Yeah. And ultimately, you know, like the warning he gives at the end.
Yes.
Like we have to consider that, you know, take that seriously.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning.
Okay.
With those like little early signs, you know, those breadcrumbs.
Yeah, the little hints that something's off.
Yeah, those signs that something was amiss. That, you know, looking back, I'm sure he probably saw them as warnings.
Right.
But at the time, he dismissed them.
He didn't think anything of them.
Until later.
Like right away, he has this encounter with this elderly Nez Perce man.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
In Riggins.
Yeah, in Riggins.
And it's not just some, like, casual tourist anecdote.
Yeah.
It's a direct warning.
Yeah, and a solemn one too, right?
Yeah, it is.
I mean, this guy's serious.
And it's specifically about, like, certain places.
Places in the canyon.
In the canyon.
Yeah, that don't welcome cameras.
Right. Especially, the guy says, especially where the red stones catch the evening light.
Ooh, that sends chills down my spine just hearing that.
I know, right? And you have to think, like, he's getting this warning from someone who's, got this deep ancestral connection to the land.
Exactly. This isn't just some random guy on the street. This is someone who knows the area, knows the history, and knows the stories, Yeah. And Cooper, at the time, he's just like, oh, this is great. This is, atmospheric material for his blog.
Right.
Just a bit of local color to spice up his narrative.
Yeah. And I mean, I get it. He's a photographer. He's a storyteller. He's probably heard tons of local legends and lore in his travels.
Oh, yeah. Totally.
So it's understandable that he would kind of brush it off, you know. But in hindsight, knowing what happens next, it's like, this wasn't just folklore. This was a real warning.
Yeah. And it was unheeded.
Totally unheeded.
Why do you think someone like him, an experienced outdoorsman, would be so quick to just like shrug it off?
I mean, maybe it's like a professional confidence thing. You know? He's been to so many remote places. He's heard so many stories. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's just an inherent skepticism there, like a need to ground his experiences in something tangible, something visual, which is, his domain, photography.
Right.
And maybe the allure of capturing something truly unique outweighed the risk, the perceived risk of this, like, old tale.
Right. So he arrives
at the Western Rim.
At the Western Rim, yeah. And at first, everything is perfect.
Idyllic, right. Like pristine wilderness.
Yeah. The light is beautiful. It's like almost a setup, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like the calm before the storm.
Yeah. That's like the beauty masking something.
Sinister, right.
Yeah.
Lurking beneath the surface.
Yeah. And then almost immediately, he starts seeing these dark smudges.
Oh, yeah.
On his sunset photos.
In his photos of the reddish rock spires, right?
Yes.
Very specific.
Yeah. Like, what's his first thought?
Well, I mean, the logical first step for any photographer, right, is to think, oh, it's my equipment.
Right. Gotta troubleshoot.
Exactly. And he's meticulous. So he would have gone through his gear with a fine-tooth comb.
Yeah.
Checking for lens flares, sensor dust, all the usual suspects.
Right.
And he even, meticulously cleaned his equipment.
Wow.
Which shows you how committed he was to finding a rational explanation. Mm-hmm. But they kept showing up, these smudges, even after all that.
After cleaning everything.
So that's the first sign that something weird is happening, something beyond just a technical glitch.
If you were in his shoes, at that point, what would be going through your mind?
Well, I'd probably start by questioning my own skills,
Yeah.
Like, did I miss something obvious?
Yeah.
But if it kept happening, I'd definitely start to get a little uneasy, Like, something's not right here.
Yeah. This is where things get really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
These anomalies, right?
Yes.
They start multiplying.
They escalate.
And it becomes much harder to blame, equipment failure.
Right. It goes way beyond a smudged lens at this point.
So the next morning, it's clear skies, beautiful day.
That's perfect for photography, you'd think, right?
You would think. But his camera starts acting up, like really weird, powering down.
Randomly.
And when it does take pictures,
the images are distorted.
They're messed up.
in really bizarre ways. We're not talking about like blurry photos or something.
Yeah.
We're talking about warped landscapes. Like the ground is bending in unnatural ways.
Whoa.
And then there are these impossible human silhouettes.
Yeah, human silhouettes.
Yeah, on these cliff faces. Like people standing on sheer rock walls.
That's creepy.
It is. And these aren't typical digital artifacts.
Like what you'd normally see with a camera malfunction.
Exactly. It's something else entirely.
So at that point, Cooper's trying to rationalize it. He's like,
Yeah.
oh, it must be, digital glitches.
Right. His mind is still trying to cling to a logical explanation. But the evidence is stacking up against him.
Yeah, yeah. And then to make things even weirder, his drone starts malfunctioning too.
The drone, that's right.
This really sophisticated piece of tech, right?
Yeah.
And it's not just a bad signal. It's like actively flying erratically.
Like it's being controlled by something else.
Yeah. It won't hold altitude. It veers off course.
And the footage it captures is just, it's mind-blowing.
Okay, like what kind of footage?
So it shows these moving patterns on the canyon floor.
Yeah.
Like petroglyphs.
Petroglyphs, like the ancient rock carvings.
Yeah, exactly. But they're moving, shifting around.
That's impossible.
I know, right?
Yeah.
That's what makes it so unsettling.
Yeah.
How do you explain that as a technical error? You can't.
No.
And then there's the audio from the drone.
Oh, yeah?
There's this faint whispering. And it's saying his name. Alexander. Alexander. Join us below.
Oh, that's so creepy.
It is. Even if you tried to dismiss it as interference, the fact that it's saying his name, that's got to freak you out.
Totally. It's one thing to have equipment fail. It's another to feel like the environment is messing with you.
Absolutely.
And then all of a sudden, this thick mist rolls in.
Out of nowhere.
And the temperature drops.
Yeah, it plummets. Like suddenly it's freezing.
And he gets disoriented.
During a hike.
It's like the canyon is, I don't know, trying to mess with him, trying to isolate him.
Yeah, the way you're describing it is like the canyon is becoming an entity. It's not just a place anymore. It's like it's acting with intention.
And his GPS starts malfunctioning too.
Showing him impossible locations.
So not only is he disoriented, but his tech is failing.
His cools are failing him one by one.
Yeah.
How would you feel at that point, if you were out there?
I think I'd be freaking out. I mean, imagine being in this remote location and all your technology, all your lifelines to the outside world are just gone.
Yeah.
You're completely isolated at the mercy of whatever's happening around you.
So he goes back to his campsite.
Right, back to his RV, hoping for some sense of normalcy.
And it's not like it's been ransacked or anything,
No, nothing's been stolen.
but things are just off.
Subtly wrong.
Yeah, like just rearranged.
Like something's been there, but you can't quite put your finger on it.
Like his coffee mug is moved.
Yeah.
And his bed sheets are messed up. Like someone sat on his bed.
Someone or something.
Right, right.
Well.
And then, this is really creepy. He finds childlike drawings in his journal.
Childlike drawings. Yeah, like stick figures falling into this like jagged line.
That's disturbing.
It is. And the jagged line, it looks just like the canyon wall.
Oh, wow. Like a premonition.
Yeah. What do you think those drawings would make him feel?
I don't know. A sense of dread. Like he's not in control of the story anymore. Something else is writing it.
Yeah, yeah. And then his cameras.
The ones that weren't working.
Yeah. They're arranged in a perfect circle
What?
in the RV.
That's so creepy.
And they're all recording.
But they were dead before, right?
Yeah, the batteries were dead.
And now they're all recording. That's, I don't even know what to say. It's like something's playing with him.
Yeah, like they've been repurposed.
For some unknown purpose. It's chilling.
Okay, this is where we shift, right?
Uh-huh.
From like, oh, maybe this is just weird stuff happening.
Right.
To like, no, something is actively messing with this guy.
Something is intentionally engaging with him.
Because now he's hearing whispers outside the RV at night.
Whispers.
Yeah.
Like voices.
Yeah, like voices. And they're circling the RV.
That's terrifying.
And they're calling his name.
Calling his name. Like, what are they saying?
Things like, "We see you, Alexander. We've been waiting. Your lens opened the way. Come capture us properly."
Your lens opened the way. What does that even mean?
That's the question, isn't it? It's like they're blaming him for something, for letting them in somehow.
Because he photographed them.
Maybe. I mean, this isn't a malfunctioning camera or bad weather. This is communication.
Direct communication. And it's terrifying. It's like they're saying he woke something up by taking pictures.
Yeah, yeah. And then it gets even weirder. The voices start mimicking people he knows.
Mimicking. Like impersonating them?
Yeah. Like recounting private conversations, secrets, stuff that there's no way they could know.
That's impossible. How could they possibly know that?
Right. It's beyond creepy. Like, how do you explain that?
You can't. I mean, this goes beyond any rational explanation. It suggests that whatever this is, it has access to his life, his memories, his relationships. It's deeply disturbing.
And then the temperature inside the RV drops.
Even though the heater is on.
Yeah, even though the heater is on, it gets freezing cold.
Okay, that's just messed up. Like, it's defying the laws of physics.
And there's this tapping on the windows.
Tapping.
Yeah, like rhythmic tapping.
Like someone's knocking.
Yeah, but it moves around the RV like it's circling him.
Oh, God.
It's like a sensory assault, designed to make him feel completely surrounded.
Yeah. And to make him question his sanity, too. Like, is this real? Am I imagining this?
And then he hears these like long, slow scratching sounds on the metal exterior of the RV.
Scratching. Like something's trying to get in.
Yeah, like that. But he says it sounds like carving.
Carving? What, like symbols or something?
He doesn't know, but it's terrifying. And he even starts to think like maybe the sound is coming from inside his own head.
Wow. That's how messed up this is getting. The lines between reality and his perception are blurring.
Yeah.
It's like his mind is breaking down under the pressure.
And then dawn comes.
Finally.
Yeah. And the whispers stop. The tapping stops.
So it's over.
No. Because when he goes outside, he sees these crude symbols etched into the paint of the RV.
Etched, like scratched in.
Yeah, scratched in. Yeah. Deep spirals, stick figures, weird angular patterns, like the petroglyphs from the drone footage.
Oh, so it's connecting back to that.
Yeah, and there's a perfect circle scraped around the entire vehicle.
A perfect circle? How is that even possible?
I don't know, but it's there, like a boundary drawn.
Yeah. Or maybe like a claiming of the space, like this is ours now.
And this is where things take a really dark turn. His satellite phone rings.
Oh, no.
And the display shows his own number.
Calling himself.
Yeah. And when he answers, it's this distorted voice.
What does it say?
Too late to leave now, Alexander. You've already shown us to your followers. The gateway is opening both ways.
Oh, my God. That's chilling. The gateway is opening both ways? What does that even mean?
I don't know, but it doesn't sound good. It's like they're saying he's trapped and he's brought others with him.
Because of his photos.
Because of his photos, yeah. His online presence. And then he gets a notification on his phone, 37 posts published on his Instagram.
37. He didn't post those, did he?
No, these are blackened, distorted images of the canyon with these shadowy figures in them.
Shadowy figures, like people.
It's hard to tell, but the final image is of his RV, surrounded by these like elongated silhouettes.
Elongated, like really tall.
Yeah, really tall. And the caption on that photo says, "They're coming to see what I found, the perfect audience."
Oh, God. It's like his own platform is being used against him.
It is. And here's the witch part. His followers, they think it's some kind of like avant-garde marketing campaign.
What?
Yeah. They're excited. They're planning trips to come see what he's found.
So they're walking into a trap.
Exactly. He tries to warn them, but his comments get deleted. And then these like cheerful automated responses pop up, giving directions to his campsite.
Oh, that's just sick. It's like they're using his account to lure people in.
Yeah. And he can't stop it.
He's completely helpless.
So he tries to leave, but his RV won't start. His phone is completely dead. His GPS shows impossible routes.
It's like the canyon is holding him captive.
Yeah, like it doesn't want him to leave.
And his cameras, they start activating again on their own.
What?
Yeah, but this time they're all focused on that red stone formation.
The one from the photos.
Yeah, they're showing it from all these weird angles, like possible angles, like the cameras are floating or something.
It's like something is drawing them to that spot, to those red stones.
And it's using his cameras to document it, to show its approach.
And then the final set of photos comes through.
The final photos.
Yeah, and there are faces pressed against the red stones in the sunset light.
Faces, like human faces.
Yeah, and he recognizes them.
Recognizes them. Who are they?
His followers.
Oh, no. You're kidding, right?
I wish I was. It's like they're being absorbed into the stones somehow.
It's like they got sucked in by whatever this is. Drawn in by those manipulated posts, those fake promises of adventure.
So Cooper, he decides to hike to the red stones.
He's going towards them.
Yeah, it's like the path is opening up for him, guiding him.
Like he's being pulled in.
Yeah, like a moth to a flame.
Oh.
And the redstone formation, it's getting bigger.
Bigger. Like it's growing.
Yeah, and it's pulsing with light. The air is shimmering around it.
This is getting really freaky.
And he hears the whispers again, but this time they're saying, just one more perfect shot, Alexander. Capture us at the moment of emergence. Your audience awaits.
Oh, man. They're using his passion against him, his desire to get that perfect shot.
And then he sees them through the viewfinder, these translucent, elongated figures.
The tall ones from the photos.
Yeah. And the red stone, it starts to crack open.
Crack open. Like an egg.
Yeah, like that. And the setting sun is illuminating it from within.
Oh.
And then he feels these cold hands on him.
Cold hands.
And he hears his father's voice.
His dead father.
Yeah. And his father says, we waited so long for someone with your reach, Alexander. Your followers will come looking. And each one that captures this moment joins us. The perfect audience forever.
The perfect audience forever.
What a horrifying thought.
It is. It's like they feed off of attention, off of being seen, being documented.
And they're using Cooper's platform to get it, to grow their audience. It's a nightmare scenario for the digital age.
So Cooper runs.
He gets away from the red stones.
He does. But he's pursued by this, like, unnatural light and these howling voices.
They're howling like wolves.
No, like something else, something inhuman. And then he runs into his followers on the access road.
The ones who were coming to see him.
Yeah. He tries to warn them, but they don't believe him. They think he's lost it.
Of course they do. He's probably acting crazy after everything he's been through.
They're more worried about his mental state than what he's trying to tell them, so they take him with them. They take him away from the canyon.
Yeah. But as they're driving away, he sees it. His RV surrounded by those tall figures.
Oh, God. And the others can't see them.
No, they can't.
It's like he's been marked somehow, exposed to something that the others aren't able to see.
And then his phone gets one last message. An image of the red stones, fully split open now. And a date. 1 year in the future.
A date. Like a warning.
Maybe. Or a promise.
That's ominous.
So he gets out of there. But he's not okay. He gets diagnosed with acute stress disorder, potential PTSD.
Makes sense, after everything he went through.
But there's no physical evidence.
To back up his story.
No.
So it's easy for people to dismiss it. To say he just imagined it all.
Except for one thing. Some of his followers, the ones who went to the canyon,
What about them?
many of them haven't posted online since.
Since they went to Hell's Canyon.
Yeah. 3 of them are officially missing.
Missing.
And others, their accounts are posting these like weird cryptic messages with automated sounding responses.
It's like they're not themselves anymore.
So before he goes completely silent, Cooper issues this final warning. Stay away from the western rim, the red stones, ignore whispers and strange shadows, and under no circumstances should anyone photograph the red stones at sunset.
He's trying to protect others from suffering the same fate.
But here's the truly terrifying part. His accounts, they're still active, and new posts are appearing, inviting people to Hell's Canyon.
What? But he's not posting them, right?
No, it's like something is using his platform to lure more people in.
This is messed up, and people are still going.
They are. They're still responding to the invitations, planning crypts. They're drawn to the mystery.
It's a trap. A digital trap.
So what do you think really happened to Alexander Cooper in Hell's Canyon?
I don't know. I mean, it's a wild story.
It is.
But the details, they're just so specific
Yeah.
and unsettling.
And the effect on his followers.
Yeah, that's the part that really gets me. It's like his experience spilled out into the real world, you know?
Yeah. It did. So we want to hear from you. What do you think? What stands out to you from this story? What details just can't be explained away?
What makes you believe him?
Because here's the thing. This is more than just a creepy story.
It's a warning.
It's a warning about the power of images, about the dark side of our online world.
About the things that can be lurking just beyond our perception.
Think about it. How easily can our reality be manipulated? What are the risks of chasing those perfect shots, those viral moments?
And what if there are places in this world that really don't want to be found, that don't want to be photographed?
What if Cooper stumbled onto something truly ancient and powerful? Something that doesn't play by our rules?
And what if those accounts, those online personas we create, can be used against us in ways we can't even imagine?
Maybe the real deep dive starts now, as we all consider the implications of this story.
As we think about the shadows lurking at the edges of our digital world.
And as we ask ourselves, what are we inviting in when we point our cameras at the unknown?
The perfect audience might be more terrifying than we ever realized. All right, let's dive into this one. It's The document we're looking at today kind of throws down the gauntlet right off the bat. This warning: stay away from craters of the moon, Idaho. This is my final warning. It grabs you, doesn't it? You know right away we're not dealing with some happy-go-lucky travel blog here.
Oh, absolutely. You get that sense of urgency, that raw fear, and it cuts through all the noise. It's like a primal scream bypassing all the facts and figures and hitting you right in the gut.
Yeah, exactly. It's like this raw personal experience, and it's so powerful because it bypasses the head and goes straight for the heart, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know, it's not folklore. It's not some campfire story. This person, who we only know as the narrator, is claiming this happened to them. This is firsthand. They're desperate to get this message out. It's almost like a plea. And that's what we're going to try to unpack today, right? What happened to this person at Craters of the Moon National Monument? And why are they so insistent that you, the listener, need to hear about it?
I think that's the key here. It's not just a story, it's a warning, a very urgent one.
Right. And it all starts with this RV trip, 10 days exploring the American West, a chance for the narrator and his partner, Eliza, to reconnect after, a rough patch.
Yeah.
And he's very clear about this. He starts as a skeptic, right? He's looking for a logical explanation for everything that happens. Doesn't jump to the supernatural. And that makes what follows even more unsettling.
Yeah, that's such an important detail. It really adds weight to his account. He's not someone easily spooked. He's trying to find rational explanations, magnetic anomalies, geological quirks, even psychological factors. But in the end, something breaks through that skepticism, doesn't it? Something really shakes him.
So they arrive at Craters of the Moon, and it starts with this almost throwaway interaction with a park ranger. Feels like one of those classic horror movie moments, foreshadowing. The ranger tells them to stick to the marked trails, stay in designated campsites, especially with a new moon making it extra dark. Standard safety stuff, right?
Seems like it. Until Eliza mentions wanting to explore, a bit further afield.
Right, she mentions lava tubes, remote areas that haven't been properly surveyed. And the narrator picks up on the subtle shift in the ranger's demeanor. He's not just giving friendly advice anymore, is he?
No, it's more pointed. Almost a warning, especially when Eliza mentions going off the beaten path. It's like the ranger knows something he's not saying. Makes you wonder what the Park Service might be aware of, right? Something beyond just getting lost in the dark.
Yeah. And of course, they decide to disregard this warning. Eliza, she's drawn to this unmarked campsite, a circular formation of volcanic cones with a flat clearing. It's secluded, no light pollution, perfect for stargazing. The narrator, he's hesitant, has that gut feeling they should stick to the designated areas, but Eliza's enthusiasm wins out. It's that human desire for something unique, something off the map, that pulls them in.
Yeah, that pull of the unknown can be pretty strong. Makes you think, how many times have we ignored that inner voice for the sake of adventure?
Right, exactly. And the drive to this campsite, it's rough. The narrator mentions pushing their Airstream, their mobile haven, to its limits. There are moments where he thinks about turning back, but they press on. They're really isolating themselves, aren't they? Moving further and further away from any sense of safety or help.
They're really putting themselves out there, almost like cutting off all escape routes. And it's interesting, isn't it, how that isolation might have played a role in what happened.
It's definitely a factor. Then they arrive at the clearing, and the narrator notices these spiral patterns etched into the rocks all around the campsite. At first, he brushes it off as natural formations, just the way the rock eroded, no big deal. But looking back, this detail becomes crucial. The spiral, it's like the first sign, a breadcrumb leading them to something truly bizarre.
It's almost like a recurring motif, isn't it? This spiral pattern. And I think it's fascinating how our brains work, right? We tend to filter new information through what we already know. So these spirals, at first, they're just part of the landscape. But as their experience unravels, these spirals become more and more significant. It makes you think about how often we might miss those subtle clues, those hints that something is off, simply because they don't fit into our neat little boxes.
Absolutely. And the next thing that happens, it really throws a wrench into their sense of normalcy.
Yeah.
Their electronics start going haywire, and I mean haywire.
Yeah, more than just a little glitch. We're talking full-on electronic anomalies. It starts with the narrator's watch, the alarm goes off at some random hour, and then the digital display is just gibberish. Then Eliza's phone clock jumps ahead 2 days. Like they've been at the campsite for 3 days when it's only been 1. And get this, all her photos from the day before are corrupted. Distorted images, these weird light flares that, wouldn't you know it, coalesce into spiral patterns.
Oh, wow. I'm getting chills just hearing you describe this. It's like an assault on their sense of reality. And think about it from their perspective. You're out in the middle of nowhere, relying on your technology, and it just starts betraying you. Makes you feel pretty vulnerable, right?
It's like a loss of control. The things you rely on are no longer reliable. And it escalates beyond just their personal devices. The RV itself starts acting possessed.
Yeah, the RV's electrical system goes crazy. The battery levels fluctuate wildly even though they have plenty of solar power. Lights surge and dim. The refrigerator kicks on and off for no reason. The water pump activates in the middle of the night. The narrator, he tries to rationalize it, blames the magnetic properties of volcanic rock. But even he admits it feels like more than just interference. It's like something is messing with them intentionally.
Right, and it's not just random interference. It's specific, targeted malfunctions. Almost as if something is probing their technology, testing its limits, trying to find a way in.
Yeah, it's creepy. So maybe to take their minds off things or just to feel more grounded in the natural world, they decide to explore a nearby lava tube.
A lava tube, huh? You know those underground tunnels formed by ancient lava flows? Sounds pretty cool.
It is, but in this context, it just adds to the creepiness. So they go into this lava tube, and their flashlights, brand new batteries, they start to dim. They're plunged into darkness, feeling their way through this tight, enclosed space. And then they hear it, this rhythmic, metallic tapping, like a hammer echoing in the darkness.
No, that's just... No, I'd be out of there.
The narrator calls out to Eliza, but there's no answer. Then, just as abruptly, the tapping stops. They're left in this unnerving silence, wondering what made that sound, what's lurking in the dark with them.
It's like something was testing them, playing with them. You know, humans were so visually oriented, take away our sight, and we become incredibly vulnerable. And that silence afterwards, that's almost worse than the sound itself. It's like whatever was making that noise is now watching, waiting.
Right. And it gets even weirder when they come out of the lava tube. They discover a freshly carved spiral pattern on the rock wall. The narrator is adamant that it wasn't there before. This isn't just a natural formation anymore. Something is actively changing their environment.
Yeah, that's a big shift, isn't it? The unexplained becomes undeniable. It's no longer subtle glitches or strange feelings. Something is physically altering their surroundings.
Back at the campsite, things escalate. Eliza finds some small volcanic rocks with, you guessed it, spiral patterns on them. She calls them natural mandalas, and they're weirdly warm to the touch. The narrator, he's really uneasy about these rocks, has a bad feeling, but he lets Eliza keep them, brings them into the Airstream, and he later looks back on this as a huge mistake, a turning point.
It's a classic horror trope, isn't it? The seemingly harmless object that turns out to be a conduit for something sinister. And that warmth emanating from the stones, that's definitely a red flag.
Yeah. And that night, things take another turn for the worse. At midnight, they're hit with this deep, subsonic rumble. It's not really a sound, more like a feeling, a vibration that goes right through you. The narrator connects this to the spiral stones. It's like bringing those stones into the RV triggered something.
Yeah, it's like crossing a threshold. You know, those subsonic frequencies, they can be really unsettling. We don't hear them so much as feel them. It taps into something primal, something deep in our biology. And the timing, coming right after they bring those stones inside, it's too coincidental, isn't it?
Absolutely. And the next morning, they wake up to something even more disturbing. The spiral stones have rearranged themselves on the table, forming a perfect circle. But that's not all. Their Airstream is now at the center of a giant spiral pattern etched into the soil. A huge spiral that definitely wasn't there the night before. Can you imagine waking up to that?
I don't even want to imagine it. It's like the spiral is spreading, taking over their reality. And this isn't some subtle change. It's a massive, undeniable alteration of their environment. It forces you to confront the possibility that something is at work here, something beyond our understanding.
It's like their reality is being rewritten. And to make matters worse, the Airstream won't start. They're stuck, trapped in this increasingly bizarre situation. And the electronics, they continue to act up. The narrator's phone, which had been almost dead, suddenly shows an 87% charge, and the time is frozen at 11 fun.
The recurring 11.11, that's interesting. In a lot of cultures, it's seen as a sign of the unusual, the paranormal, almost like a glitch in the Matrix, right? And the impossible battery charge, that all points to something messing with their technology, warping their reality.
It's like they're in a place where the normal rules no longer apply. And then they see it. On a distant ridge, this solitary figure, just standing there watching them. A human-shaped silhouette. And then it morphs into something even more terrifying. They're doppelgangers. Two figures that look exactly like them, moving in perfect sync. It's like they're being mirrored, copied, and then it gets even weirder. The two figures split into two pairs. Now there are four of them.
Doppelgangers. Talk about unsettling. Across so many cultures, they're seen as bad omens, a sign of impending doom, or even a representation of your darker self. And the fact that they multiply, it just amplifies the feeling of being watched, studied, even replaced by something unknown.
It's like their identities are being stolen, fragmented. And that night, the whispers start. They hear these faint scratching sounds at first, then it evolves into murmuring voices, coming from everywhere inside the RV. The vents, the plumbing, even the walls. But it's the content of the whispers that's truly chilling.
Yeah, this is where things get really personal. It's not just random noise. They're hearing fragments of their own conversations. Private moments, doubts, arguments they've had. It's like someone is replaying their most intimate moments back to them, but twisted, distorted.
It's like their deepest fears and insecurities are being amplified, thrown back in their faces. The narrator, he tries to rationalize it. Stress-induced hallucinations, weird acoustic effects. But even he's starting to doubt himself.
It's psychological warfare. Someone or something is actively trying to sow discord, to break them apart. And it works. They start to turn on each other, their relationship crumbling under the weight of this unseen torment.
Yeah, and the physical manifestations intensify too. The temperature inside the RV plunges, it's freezing.
Yeah.
The spiral stones, they vibrate and spin on their own. And they hear footsteps on the roof, on the walls. Footsteps that defy gravity, tracing those same spiral patterns.
It's like the spiral is becoming a physical presence, and the footsteps, that's just impossible. It's a blatant violation of the laws of physics. It's a message, we are here, we can do whatever we want.
The next morning brings a brief respite. Silence. But it doesn't last long. They discover footprints outside the RV. Paired footprints, their own, encircling the airstream. But the footprints appear on vertical surfaces too. It's like whatever's mimicking them can walk on walls, defy gravity. And Eliza, she starts to connect the dots. The content of the whispers, the unraveling their relationship, it's all tied to this. Like their internal struggles are being mirrored, amplified by this external force.
Those footprints are such a powerful image. It's tangible proof of the impossible. It's a message saying, we are you and we are more than you. And Eliza's realization, it's heartbreaking. It's like they're being puppeted, their inner turmoil fueling this external nightmare.
It's like they're trapped in a hall of mirrors, their own fears and insecurities reflecting back at them, distorted and magnified. And they can't escape. They try to drive away, but they always end up back at the campsite. The spiral patterns, they're everywhere now. In the condensation in their coffee grounds, even shimmering in the air. The spiral stones are getting hotter, pulsing with an eerie energy. And they start to see each other differently, their perceptions warping. Small gestures become sinister. They're losing their grip on reality.
It's like a slow, insidious breakdown. The spiral is infiltrating every aspect of their lives, their senses, their thoughts, even their relationship. It's a complete unraveling.
Yeah. And then, out of nowhere, Eliza discovers a new cave opening. A cave that wasn't there before. She insists it's a way out, but her behavior is off. She's manic, almost possessed. They argue, their nerves frayed to the breaking point. And the doppelgangers? They reappear, closer now, more detailed. They get a good look at them, and it's terrifying. They have solid black eyes, and their jaws unhinge unnaturally. But here's the thing. The doppelgangers stop at the edge of the large spiral pattern in the soil. It's like the spiral is a barrier, a line they can't cross.
It's a fascinating detail, isn't it? The spiral, the symbol that's been haunting them, might actually be protecting them, at least from the physical manifestations of these entities. But the psychological torment, that's relentless.
The next night is the worst. It's a full-on assault. The temperature inside the RV swings from scorching hot to freezing cold. Objects move on their own, the spiral stones glow and spin wildly, and the doppelgangers, they're right outside the window, mimicking their every move, whispering their darkest secrets, even discussing the potential end of their relationship.
It's like the entities are putting on a show, a twisted, personalized performance designed to break them completely. And the fact that they talk about the end of their relationship, it suggests that their bond, their love, is somehow a threat to these entities. Maybe they feed on negativity, on discord, or maybe they just want to isolate them, make them easier to control.
The next morning, there are even more doppelgangers. And then, something happens that confirms the true nature of the spiral stones. Eliza touches one of the stones, and a spiral-shaped burn appears on her palm. At the exact same moment, all the doppelgangers develop identical burns on their palms. It's proof, right? The stones are a conduit, a link between them and these things.
That's the smoking gun, isn't it? The connection is undeniable. The entities are somehow interacting with them, marking them through these stones. It's chilling.
And then it all comes to a head. The spiral stones start levitating, spinning in the air. Eliza, she's transfixed, her eyes glazed over. The narrator, he knows he has to do something drastic. He grabs the glowing stones and throws them outside the boundary of the large soil spiral. And the reaction is immediate. This unearthly shriek rips through the air. It's like something is in pain. The doppelgangers, they go berserk. Eliza, she snaps out of it for a moment, just long enough to urge the narrator to run, to warn others, and then she's yanked back towards the center of the spiral. The ground opens up, a gaping chasm, and she's gone, swallowed whole. It's a horrific, heartbreaking end.
It's a desperate act of defiance. He breaks the connection, even though it costs him everything. And Eliza's plea, it speaks volumes about her character. Even in that moment of terror, she's thinking of others. She's a hero in her own way.
It's tragic. And the aftermath, it's just as unsettling. The narrator escapes, but the official explanation is just absurd. An earthquake, a sinkhole. They dismiss everything he experienced as trauma, maybe carbon monoxide poisoning. But he knows what he saw, what he felt. He has the fading spiral scars on his hands, a constant reminder. And there's this one detail that really gets to me. Every electronic device he uses, the time always resets to 11:11.
It's like a calling card, isn't it? A reminder that what happened is real, that the spiral is still out there. And it makes you wonder, what if those official explanations are just a way to cover up something truly terrifying, something the authorities don't want us to know about?
Yeah, it's like they're trying to sweep it under the rug. But the narrator, he can't let it go. He keeps seeing Eliza's doppelganger, watching him from afar, a constant reminder of his loss. And the spiral, it's like it's growing, spreading. He sees it everywhere. The scars on his hands, they flare up sometimes, a burning reminder of that connection. And that's why he's issuing this warning. Stay away from craters of the moon. Stick to the marked paths. Don't bring home any spiral rocks. He believes that places a thin boundary between our reality and something else, a place where these entities, these alien parasites, feed on our connection, our vulnerabilities.
His warning, it's born out of experience, out of pain. And it's a warning we should heed. He's not just some crazy guy rambling on the internet. He's someone who's seen the other side, who's lost someone he loved, and he's trying to prevent others from suffering the same fate.
He ends his account with this chilling image of final instruction. He says, if you ever see yourself standing in the distance, watching, turn and run, don't look back. Don't ever look back. It's a haunting thought, isn't it? The idea that our own reflection could be a harbinger of something sinister, a sign that we've crossed a line we shouldn't have. It makes you think about the nature of reality, about what might be lurking just beyond our perception.
It's a reminder that there are things in this world we don't understand, forces beyond our comprehension. And sometimes the best course of action is to stay away, to respect the boundaries. We may think we're in control, but this story, it shows us that there are things out there that operate on a whole other level, things that we can't control, that we can barely even comprehend. And maybe, just maybe, those things are watching us right now.
Okay, folks, that's going to do it for this deep dive. I don't know about you, but I'm definitely going to be thinking twice about venturing off the beaten path anytime soon. And maybe keeping a close eye on my reflection. You never know what might be staring back.
Stay safe out there, folks, and keep those eyes peeled.